Hi, everyone. I'm here.
Hi, Cal.
Hello.
It's me. It's Ernest T. Does anybody know who Ernest T is? Barney, you got to know who Ernest T is.
I'm sorry, say that again?
Do you know who Ernest T. Bass is?
No.
I've heard you make that comment before, though.
It's me. It's Ernest T. That's from the old Andy Griffith show. He used to in order to get a girl's attention, he used to throw bricks through windows. Then Barney used to chase after him.
Bricks through windows. Good.
Yeah. So he used to throw like rocks through windows, not bricks. Ernest T. Bass, one of the greatest characters of all time. Let's see here. Would you send me a cheat sheet for this meeting? Here it is.
You got it?
Got it.
Okay.
Is Terry coming?
He's here.
Oh, yes. Hi, Terry.
He's just silent.
Yeah.
I don't see him.
His
I don't see him.
favorite dog is showing.
Oh.
He was here.
I'm here. I'm here. I'm
You're
here.
here? Okay. Ernest T?
I was the theme song the whole time. I was wondering why you didn't hear me.
Oh.
Terry, do you know who Ernest T. Bass is?
Yes, that's why I was whistling the theme song.
Okay. All right. So, and Brian coming or no? We don't?
You know, he said he might if he could get out. So I don't think we have to wait. He may just chime in
Okay.
when he's available.
You guys all ready to start?
Yeah.
Okay. I'm going to call to order the meeting of the Finance Committee of the Park District of Highland Park for Tuesday, November 24th, 2020. And I have 4:01 p.m. Roxanne, can you please call the roll?
Commissioner Bernstein,
Here.
Commissioner Grossberg,
Here.
President Ruttenberg.
I am here. Cal, we are live on YouTube.
Okay, great. First item on the agenda is public comment for items on the agenda. Director Romes, have you received any public comments?
No, I've not.
Okay, having not received any, we're going to move on to the next agenda item, which is the approval of the Financing Committee meeting minutes from November 5th, 2020. Can I entertain a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Motion made by Commissioner Grossberg, seconded by President Ruttenberg. All in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
The ayes have it. The motion passes. The next item on the agenda is the 2021 budget review. I assume that's Roxanne. That's not on my cheat sheet.
But actually, it's Mary Lynn is going to do
Oh,
that.
oh, you're right. Sorry. I'm doing too many things at once. All right. Thank you. Oh, I got your cheat. I looked at the wrong agenda item. Or wrong sheet. Okay. All right. Mary Lynn, the floor is yours.
Okay.
Excuse me, Cal.
Yes.
I'm going to have to excuse myself for a couple minutes to take this very important call, but I will come right back.
Do you want us to pause? Or do you
No.
okay. All right. Go ahead and take your call. This is Bookie. Just kidding. Whoever I know where I'm at.
It actually sounded like it was a duck calling him. I'm not sure.
Okay. Go ahead, Mary Lynn.
I thought the duck
Okay.
made the motion.
Yeah.
All righty. So this afternoon, we are going to look at our COVID-19 updated financial forecasts dated today. And so when we do COVID financial forecasts, we do like to have our disclaimer because with COVID, as we know, things can literally change day by day from tier to tier, phase to phase, to stay-at-home orders. And so any kind of significant change could definitely change the financial forecast we're about to look at. And so if you recall, back in June, staff had been asked to prepare COVID projections, what happened if COVID comes back. And so this is that schedule from back in June. And let's just take a moment to review what we had done in June. We took the same schedule that we were used to seeing every month with our original budget, the green showing our budgeted revenues of 21 million. And of course, the red solid line was what we had budgeted for expenses, and we were budgeting a $3 million surplus for the end of 2020 before COVID hit. And so then when that did happen and we were closed, we were asked to try to come up with some sort of a model. What if COVID comes back? And at that time, back in June, there were rumors that COVID may be coming back around Thanksgiving. And so that is exactly what we used as our date for a shutdown was Thanksgiving. And so at that time, here is what we had come up with for our COVID projections. We had used this green dotted line to do a shutdown in November, and you can very blatantly see that revenues would just pretty much stop in their tracks and give us about $15 million in revenue. And then even though we did this based on another stay-at-home order starting around Thanksgiving, we did project our expenses to continue pretty much sort of on the same curve and ending the year at 13.5 million. And the reason we did that is because any sort of savings we would get from being closed, so rather, if it would be like furloughing of staff or savings of utilities, cable, whatnot, a lot of those things don't hit until a month or so later, right? Those are all kind of paid in arrear. And so any savings realized from some sort of a shutdown or stay-at-home order would hit us in 2021. And so when we did this back in June, we showed that we would have a surplus of about $1.5 million after that closed down back in March, coupled with the end of the year, which would give us a net reduction of our surplus of about $1.5 million. So that's what we projected out in June. And so things have changed a little bit since those projections. And so we're going to go over what we have done to change our projections since then. So we were off by a week. We actually ended up closing about a week earlier than Thanksgiving, pretty much last Wednesday, while it's not a stay-at-home order. And we're not completely closed, but of course, many of our facilities are not functioning where they were before last Wednesday. And so as a result, we know that we are going to have reductions to revenue for November. And any kind of revenue reduction we have, whether it be refunding our customers or issuing credits to our customers, those both come out of our revenue line item. The green dotted line item is where they would come out of, because when you put that through RecCheck, it literally just sucks the revenue back out of the program where it had originally been charged to. And so we know we've already refunded $53,000 in memberships, and we've issued another $1,200 in aquatics as of yesterday. And then we know we've got some tennis refunds that are forthcoming as well. As far as December, and with where things stand right now, we anticipate another $25,000 of athletics to be refunded, and then as well another $38,000 for Centennial. And when I say refund, I mean either credited or actually reversing charges on credit cards or writing checks or whatever the case may be. And again, this is based on the situation of where we're at right now. And again, things could change at any time. And so we're going to move on, unless, does anyone have any questions before we take a look at what this all looks like in a graph?
Anybody have any questions?
Nope.
All right, go ahead. Keep on going.
Okay. So, and I know this is a little busy looking, but just take a moment. We're gonna look at this. We dropped in our budgeted revenues and expenses, the green and red, with a surplus of 3 million. We then dropped in the dotted green and the dotted red, which are COVID projections from June, which showed a surplus of 1.5 million. Then what we did is we went back and dropped in, and you're familiar with this green dashed line that we look at every month, what our actual revenues, how they're actually streaming through October 31st. And I am just going to pause there and say, we felt we've just really been doing an amazing job as far as bringing in revenue through adapting our programs and services over the year. And I did want to share a couple numbers. I know one of you had asked for some of this data last time, but at October 31st, we had athletics at a surplus of 142,000. We had Centennial at a surplus of 60,000, Sunset Valley at 700,000. We had indoor tennis at 100,000, the Golf Learning Center at 170,000, Rosewood Beach at 60,000, Park Avenue at 30,000, and outdoor tennis 130,000, just helping us to really just really keep us going during COVID this year. We then took this line at October 31st, and based on the data we just looked at, we're pretty far into November, so we can kind of see we're probably going to be at about $500,000 in revenue. And then in December, we're going to see a slight decline in our revenue. We had only projected $20,000 in revenue for December, and we know already we're going to have at least $50,000 of refunds. So we're looking at having year-end projected revenue with our two bouts of COVID at about $16 million. Now, when we come back down and look at this red dash line for expenses, which again, I'm going to say, I think so far we have really done an amazing job of controlling our expenditures as far as our payroll reductions, we are at about 25% less than the original $10 million budget. We're projecting a $7.5 million, as well as controlling other expenses along the way. So we can see that the red dash line, this is the same line we look at every month, at the end of October is at about $10.6 million. And again, we will expect the expenses to pretty much keep on that same trajectory because, again, any savings realized from any sorts of closures, or if we had deferrals like that, those wouldn't really hit until 2021 because they're deferred. But at the end of this year, with the COVID return as we have it right now, we are looking at projected revenues of about $10 million versus projected expenses of about $13 million with a surplus of $2.8 million. And so if you look at that number versus our budget for the beginning of the year, we are anticipating to be within $200,000 of that number. And that's where we're at on this presentation.
Okay. Again, if you're not speaking, can you mind muting your phone? You're muting, please. Is anybody have any questions? Commissioner Grossberg? Can we go back to that slide?
Of course, yes. Sorry.
Thank you.
There you go.
Okay, Commissioner Grossberg?
Well, no, I mean, it's good that we're coming to that, very close to the budget forecast for this. So if I would have looked at this for the first time in 6 months, I would have many questions, but knowing that, we've been kind of tracking this, it's pretty much understood.
Okay. President Ruttenberg?
Thanks. My question is, and again, what I was looking for would be a month to month to month to month to month kind of bar chart. I'm looking at the dashed blue line that shows flat, pretty much flat on the revenue.
Yes, actually, it's actually a slight decline. It's
okay.
Hard to see on here.
But contrary to that, then I see the line of expenses is still accelerating upward.
Yes.
But I don't know if we had a month to month to month comparison, would the expense line be almost straight across on a left to right basis?
Right. And I know you asked for that. We're actually we're planning on having that for next month when we look at our regular projection.
Okay. I know there's a lot that's got to be thrown in here.
Right.
Okay. All right. Yeah, I'd like to see that, and that will obviously lead to other questions. But I'm fine with that. Thank you.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you. Okay. Let's see. It's my turn. Okay, I'm off of mute. Okay, it's my turn. Mary Lynn, do these revenue projections, do they include real estate taxes?
They do have property tax in them. We have not budgeted for any property taxes in December. We occasionally, historically, we have gotten some taxes in, although when we received the letter from the county this year, they said they would not be making a disbursement in December, and I haven't heard anything to the contrary. So there are no taxes in this blue line there. We did get some taxes in November, and those are reflected here.
So the projections above, I guess the word I'm looking for is the actual over projection on the revenue. How much is that from operation? Or how much is that from a higher receipt of property taxes?
So, oh, you mean like when we show the scales, like the 65-35 breakout?
Yeah, because I mean, we talked about, no, not that, because we talked about earlier in this process that we anticipated an issue with maybe not getting as high as receipts as usual from property taxes because of people having difficulty paying them.
Right.
So the question is, I know that you calculated when you did the projections. I don't know how you allocate it or how you contemplate what happens with real estate taxes. So I'm trying to figure out how much of this actual being over budget is actually from we're getting from operations or because we have a higher amount of actual property taxes being received versus what we projected. You follow my question?
I do. And so when we did projections, so the dotted green line, we had projected a 94% collection of property taxes. And I know Brian had put it in one of the Friday memos a week or two ago with our last collection of the year. We came in at just over 94%. It was like 94.2 or 94.7. So what we projected in here for property taxes is very much online. So really you cannot blame or give credit to property taxes for us looking as good as we do. The property taxes have been pretty disappointing, honestly. Sadly, we understand why that is, but when we had projected worst case scenario, and when we went with 94%, I almost felt we were going too low, but I'm thankful that we did because they are just barely above that mark.
So that it'd be safe to say that the actual over projected, the reason why there's that there's more, I think the actual is higher than projected is not from property taxes, but from receipts from operations.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. Oh, that's good.
But I have a question. I'm sorry.
Okay.
This is why I was confused, and I'm glad that Cal asked that question. I was reading this because it says projected from operations. And I was taking this chart to be excluding real estate taxes, but you're saying that the label is not quite what the numbers really are. So that the revenue numbers, since they're including real estate taxes, are somewhat very different than the lines you're showing.
So what we're calling operations are the general and recreation funds. And so that's why the property taxes are in this schedule, because when we say operations, we're talking operating funds. Now, when we do our monthly projections, we do have the recreation fund standalone where we don't have the taxes in there. We didn't do that for this exercise. We didn't do it when we did our COVID projections because we really felt that might be all we were going to be relying on because we didn't know how long we would be, shut down for, and how quickly we could rebound and create programming and services that people would be interested in participating in.
Okay, so then I think I can go back to maybe follow up on Cal's question. If we strip out the real estate taxes, where are the numbers? What are the numbers really then? It wouldn't be 1.581. If we take out real estate taxes on revenue, it'd be significantly lower.
Mm-hmm.
It would show a lower number. But this is what our actual.
It wouldn't show a lower number. It would be a lower number from operations. And this is captioned projected from operations. So I'm seeing that there's got to be a whole different chart that is like this that should show us just operations so we can see the difference between operations, and maybe we need another line and you add the two together. But I understand Cal's question, and I was misled by the label.
Well, as I see it that, now that we know that the property taxes are baked into these numbers and they were baked into the projections, I mean, now we can extrapolate from that the reason why our actuals are higher is not because of property tax receipts, but because of a better, I guess, better performance in operations, because our property tax, according to what Mary Lynn just said, is that we're basically right on where we projected for receipts on property taxes. It's the reason for the larger actual than projected is because of operations. Is that correct?
That is absolutely correct. Yes. Yes. If we had a larger swing in property taxes, then I'm sure we would show this differently, but really it's pretty much a wash.
So Barney, the reason I asked the questions, I wanted to make sure that the actual over projected was not because we just got a windfall with property taxes. We're getting more than we anticipated. This is really attributed to the operations.
Right, I'll accept that, but I think when presented, it needs to be stated that the revenue line includes real estate taxes.
Okay.
I think what also is important to note, what really amazed me about this projection is that this is our, in totality, our general and rec fund, which is what we base our operations off of. So this does not include debt service fund, does not include capital fund. But if you look at where we're projecting to end versus where we budgeted, and we're only a couple hundred, maybe almost $300,000 off of that mark, and we're only at 94% taxes. That's pretty amazing. I think that considering we had a shutdown in early March, April, and May, and now another shutdown, we've reduced expenses to such a significant degree, and our operational revenue for programs has operated at such a good level, considering the shutdown, that we're performing as budgeted, as if it were a normal year.
Ryan, I'm going to get there. I'm not there yet.
Okay.
Okay. All right. Because I just talked about revenues at this point. So now I want to talk about expense. Unless there's any more comments about revenues. Okay. Let's talk about expenses for a second, okay, or for more than a second. So I could see that, at the beginning of the COVID, and I think Donna Dunn's on this call, so maybe she's the proper person to ask this question. Is that my recollection with the when the care package, whatever it was called, passed by Congress, there was a additional amount of unemployment insurance that was available to employees. And I think, Brian, anecdotally, you told me earlier that some employees would rather, who were laid off, decided they'd rather take the unemployment rather than come back to work. I don't know if that maybe that's just a couple people, but I've heard that anecdotally from other businesses, not just the Park District. So the question I have, I assume that additional unemployment, the bonus unemployment, whatever you want to call it, does not exist anymore. That expired. Is that correct?
That is our understanding. And what you'll see when we go over the budget presentation in a couple of minutes, that yes, unfortunately, we've generally budgeted about $5,000 a year for unemployment costs. And for next year, you are going to see a huge increase in that, because as of right now, we are not aware of any more funding that would help to cover unemployment costs.
Because the reason I bring that up is not so much about the budget item, is one of the things I thought about in the spring, I don't know if I brought it up at a meeting, is that, with regard to layoffs and everything like that, is that, the employees had the ability to collect additional unemployment that was over and above, which is normal because of the CARES Act. But I don't think that they have that ability now. So as we move forward, depending on how long the shutdown is, I just want to make sure that the fact that if someone's laid off and trying to collect unemployment, they're going to get less now in this shutdown than they were able to get last spring. I just want to make sure that's accurate.
Donna?
Yeah, I would have to defer to Donna.
Donna, do you want to comment on that?
That's correct. They have not done anything to extend that additional money that did end in July like they had initially anticipated, and nothing has been extended. So any employees that will file for unemployment at this point will just get the standard Illinois rates for unemployment.
Okay. All right. So now focusing on the expense side, obviously our expenses are lower than number one, that we budgeted, and more importantly, than we projected it. So I appreciate the fact that we were able to really claw back, based on these projections, by the end of the year, that we're really close to what we budgeted. So the question I have, I guess, to wrap this up into a nice little bow, is does that mean that the transfer from these funds will be almost similar to the capital fund, almost than what we anticipated when we did the budget last year?
I am going to say, no, we still have it sitting at a reduced amount of $1 million. And there's a couple of reasons why for that. One, we're not sure what next year is going to hold. And so it would probably be prudent of us to still keep above that $1 million in our 2 operating funds, just in case we needed it for whatever reason. We have to remember that we really don't get property taxes again until May, which we have become, ever more so reliant upon. And so that would be what I would recommend, that we at this point, and unless something really miraculous happens by the end of the year, I would not recommend transferring more.
So,
Okay, so let me, I'm on a roll right now, so I'm sorry.
Yeah.
So you're saying that we're going to keep the transfer to the capital plan the same, regardless of the fact that we are coming close to budgeted amounts, surpluses in this fund. So what is our fund balance policy for these 2 funds, and where should we be, number one? And so you're recommending that, sounds like you're recommending that we exceed our fund balance policy because of the unknown of the first and second quarter of 2021.
Yes. That is definitely what I would recommend. And I can also tell you that is what many districts around us are doing too. They have really reduced the amount of capital projects that they have been taking on, just to keep, I mean, you can always borrow from the capital fund, but I would just say not even transfer and kind of keep it where we have it. We can always increase a transfer, in 2021 if we,
Okay, so what I would like to see, not tonight, obviously, but at a meeting, in a meeting in the future, I would like to see these projections now extend 6 months into 2021, based on, what your worst case scenario. I think we've kind of exhausted 2020 now. So I'd like to see what 6 months in the future looks like, number one. And number two, I'd like to see an analysis of of the funding policy, what you're anticipating the end funding balances to be moving forward versus our fund policy.
Okay, and I think we have a slide like that in our budget presentation in a moment.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
all right. Okay, anybody else have any questions? That's all I had. Barney, Terry?
Nope.
Okay, all right, thanks for indulging me. Okay, next.
All right, so that is the end of this presentation. Okay, and so now we'll go to our budget presentation, the next item on the agenda, if that's okay with you.
That's fine, let's do it. Are we on next item? I'm sorry, I'm doing 2 things at once, I apologize.
That's okay. I didn't want to jump ahead on the agenda without,
Okay. Let's move ahead, press forward. You could chair this meeting anytime you want, Mary Lynn.
All right, so next up we have our budget presentation. So before we get into this, let's just, be pretty frank here. We don't know exactly what 2021 is going to be bringing. And I hate to say this is just a budget, but that is what it is. And it may require more adjusting as the year goes on, given the instability that we have in the world right now. And of course, our ultimate goal at the end of the day is to exceed our revenue projections and to hopefully, spend less where, we show money's our expenses. We always hope to spend less and earn more than what we show in here. So why don't we start by looking at our budget calendar? So this is today, November 24th, where our budget discussion is going to include the district-wide budget comparison, district-wide salaries, and district-wide fund balance. Then we plan on meeting again next Thursday, December 3rd, for more budget discussion to discuss fund budget comparison, recreation fund by center and facility, and revisions that you may have from today. Then the Finance Committee will meet again on December 17th. And at that point, we will discuss the budget some more with our draft budget book, which would include the capital fund. So you can see we'll have a few times to look at the budget before we present the budget book to the park board, the entire board, at the workshop meeting on January 12th. And then at the park board meeting on February 23rd, we hope to approve our budget ordinance. And it's important to keep in mind, if anything happens, we're all, we have to go back home or whatever it is, we do still have these extra 2 meetings because a final budget is not due until March 31st if necessary. I mean, our goal again is end of February, but we do have a little bit of leeway, just in case we feel like we really need to refine things because of things that happen in relation to the virus. Okay, so we're going to look at our 2021 budget highlights and assumptions. So in general, as I think I've already said, we've based the entire year on being in phase 4. But given that, we definitely have COVID contingency planning, not necessarily reflected in our budget, but certainly in our back pocket. We are prepared to go, from tier to tier or phase to phase, whatever it may be. We are always working to have more programs and services that we can provide virtually or in settings that are appropriate given what tier or what phase we may be in. As far as our revenues in the budget, we all know we passed a flat property tax resolution, so that is reflected in what you're about to see. It excludes any sort of impact fees that may be coming our way from the city. It also excludes any FEMA relief that we may qualify for in 2021, as well as any other stimulus bills that may be passed in the future. You're also going to see a significantly reduced interest income amount due to rates that are almost at 0% and have been for a while now. And then you're also going to see our recreational programming at approximately 50%. On the expense side of things, we have included resuming merit raises on April 1st at 3%. We are also looking to begin to start filling a little bit less than half of the vacant or eliminated positions by April 1st of 2021, which includes 3 parks positions, a payroll position, a marketing position, and a recreational / facility, sort of a shared position. The budget also shows us reducing 2 contractual positions. It also reflects the $1 per hour increase in minimum wage requirement. As we just discussed in the other presentation, we do have quite an uptick in our unemployment compensation budget line item. And then the budget also does include money to have a consultant help us put together our new strategic plan. Does anyone have any questions before we move on and see how this looks?
Commissioner Grossberg?
No, I'm looking forward to hearing more about the highlights.
President Ruttenberg?
Now let's press on.
All right, give me 1 second because I got interrupted. Let me see. Okay, let's move on. Thanks.
Okay. All right, so here we have our budget, district-wide budget comparison. And so staff really had a hard time figuring out what do we even want to compare a 2021 budget to. We tinkered with 2019, but that was an absolute, normal good year. And it's like, no, that's not going to work. We tried to compare ourselves to 2020 projections, and that really wasn't working either. So we finally decided to compare ourselves just to a 2020 budget, and that's what we have for you in this presentation today. So you can see year over year, our 2021 budget does have a decrease in revenue of roughly 14%. And as we saw on the previous slide, that reflects the 50% reduction in recreational income coming in. And we also have reduced expenses by about 10%. And we will get into specifics on those in another slide or two. You can see our transfers in, which are really our monies that we use for The debt service with the bonds is slightly changed, and that's, just based on the way the bonds are amortized over the years that they've been issued. And then we can also see we have some changes in our transfers out, which we can pinpoint right down here. So again, our two transfers, it's a 40-60 split of going into the debt service fund. 40% comes from the general fund, which is 622,000, and 933,000 comes from the rec fund to go to debt service to pay for our bonds every year on December 15th. The 2021 budget also reflects an anticipated $1.5 million transfer from the recreation fund to the capital fund at the end of the year. And then it also reflects a $300,000 transfer from the special recreation fund to the capital fund at the end of the year. And we know that we're looking at $1 million this year at the end of 2020 in the rec fund, and we're looking at $150,000 in the special rec fund at the end of the year.
Let's stop here a second. Let's go
yeah.
back.
Yeah,
Let's
go
stop
back
there.
just for a second. I just want to
Okay.
remember.
Oh, that's fine.
Okay.
When we talk about the general fund to debt service fund, so the first one, is that a typical amount? Is that a mandated amount? Is that for pensions, et cetera, like that?
No, this is for, so we have 4 different bonds outstanding, or debt certificates. I believe it's 2 debt certificates, 2 bonds. And so while we get roughly half of the funding to pay for those from property taxes, the other half has to come from our operation. And so that's how this works. And these numbers are very consistent year over year. And we're always careful. So like when we issued our bonds, the 7.3 million in bonds this year, we do it in a way and we amortize in a way so that the taxpayer does not see a difference in their property tax bill. So it doesn't constantly, roller coaster up and down. These numbers are very much thought out by PMA and Chapman and Cutler when they put the debt issuance together. And you can see here, it's literally a $635 difference year over year of what we have to transfer in from 2020 to 2021 for the debt service.
So the pain really is that ordinarily we would be getting a lot more from fees to help pay for that, but now we have to, a greater percentage of it is, I guess, can you just explain that?
Right, so it's coming out of our pocket, and I can.
Yeah, okay, that's the way I'm understanding it, just like
Right.
a household budget.
Exactly, and even this year, because our taxes have only come in at 94%, we are going to probably have to pay a little bit more than these numbers were budgeted for in 2020, because we are short, unless the county does, unless more people pay taxes and the county feels behooved to give us more money in December. When we make those payments, we might have to transfer a little bit more over.
Okay, and then I guess, just so you can remind me, where do the pensions payments come out of?
So those come out as we pay payroll.
Okay, so that's more of a monthly.
Yes. Director Donna may be able to explain that better, but yeah, that's basically just is an ongoing sort of a transaction. It's not a one-time transfer at the end of the year.
I just have a couple of questions about the pension. If this is not the right time to do that, it can wait.
Okay.
We
You
can
tell us, Mary Lynn, is this a good time, or is it anybody else have attention?
It's fine. As long as Brian and Donna are fine. I think we can try to answer as best as we can.
Yeah, no, certainly ask away. And if there's a question that we can't give you an answer to today, we certainly can come back and give it to you at the next meeting. So please ask away.
Okay.
Yeah.
I know we've been doing a really, really great job of stabilizing it and basically overfunding it, so that it's at 105% or 107% or anything like that. Has there been any talk about reducing that in any way so that we're only at 102%? Does that help us at all? Is that possible? Is that something we're even thinking about?
So Donna may go into a little bit more detail, but IMRF, the Illinois Municipal Retirement Fund, really sets that rate for us. So we don't actually dictate what that rate is. Donna, is that correct? Is there anything else you would add to that in regards to the amount that we and the employee pays every year?
Sure, the employee pays a flat rate based on their wages
Yeah.
every payday. And then based on the pool of employees that we have, their eligibility for retirement, people that have retired, IMRF has a really complex formula, and they provide us what our annual rate is going to be to ensure that we stay at their required funding level.
So what is their required funding level?
That I would have to check into for you. I don't know that off the top of my head.
Okay.
Terry, can I perhaps give a bit of guidance here? Many government agencies borrow from the state retirement fund, in essence, by not paying their full annual contribution.
Right.
We do not borrow anything. So we're not accumulating interest, we're not accumulating extra costs. I'm using the wrong words, but we're fully funding every year. And the amount that we pay into the fund reflects the fact that we're current and that we have paid down any accrued obligations.
Yeah. Okay. I wasn't sure how that worked from the administrative end of it. I know how it works as an employee.
Right.
So,
And Terry, one of the issues that when you talk to the city, they have a large pension obligation that they're constantly funding. And in the city of Chicago constantly borrows against the fund because they don't make their contributions.
don't I know it?
Yeah. But can I ask a question? I'm sorry, Terry, I didn't mean to, I just want to clarify.
Fine. That's fine.
I just want to, viewing us as having a unified bank account would be the reflection of the total revenue, total expenses, et cetera. The transfers are internal transfers. These aren't payments of $622,000 from a general fund to debt service fund. Is that an internal transfer, or is that an actual payment out to cover the debt service obligation?
It is simply a journal entry between funds, because you want to think of each fund. I would think of us as having 5 bank accounts. Each fund is a different account. So it simply transfers between each other when we actually make the debt payment on December 15th, and that money comes out of the debt service fund.
But that money is incorporated in the total expense line.
Yes, that is
Okay.
true.
Okay. See, so for purposes of the budget comparison, anything labeled 2021 fund transfers is really information about how we manage internally, but does not add to another expense of saying we have to pay $222,000, we have to pay $930,000. Those are already in the numbers in the lines above.
That is true. Yes.
Okay. Again, I view this as a household bank account, as the analogy was made before, our household budget. These happen to be for specific internal sub-accounts where we like to have some money tucked away to pay things later on.
Yes.
Thank you.
Hey, any other questions, guys? Okay, I just have a couple, maybe just one. So if, Mary Lynn, if on the 2021 fund transfers, you have $1.5 million from the rec fund to the capital fund. Is that the same transfer we talked about in 2020 that's only going to be $1 million this year?
Yes, it is.
Okay, and then with regard to the $300,000 to the special rec fund, usually that number is higher, but because of the flat levy, that's why it's going to be less for 2021?
Absolutely, and we're gonna look at a fund balance model in just a couple of slides, and you'll be able to see that a little bit better.
Okay, then I'll wait. If maybe you'll answer all my questions. Okay, no more questions on this, so let's move on to the next slide.
Okay. All right. So what we have here is our district-wide comparison year over year. We took capital out. And I can see that it's got a typo, sorry. And we also took the bonds out because that really throws things off too. So there are a couple accounts here that I want to really draw attention to of what's sort of happening year over year. So the first one I want to look at is programs. So like we said, recreation, we're only budgeting about 50% of what a normal year would be. And so in programs, you're seeing roughly a 29% reduction in revenue. And then you also see that near down as far as program expenses. They're very much aligned with each other. What we put in is pretty much what we get out. If we look at camps, that one hurts even more. That is a reduction of revenue of about 53%. And then the associated costs with those camps would also decrease by 42%. Same sort of thing, special events. We are decreasing those by about 50%. And then the costs associated with that go down about 46%. I do want to draw your attention to property taxes. And so we're showing an overall budgeted reduction of about 1.71%. And that's just how the numbers kind of came out, what we had budgeted in 2020 versus 2021. But, you know, pretty much flat, I guess, a little bit negative there. But just so you can see, again, that's the effect of our flat tax. Also, our memberships. We are budgeting those to be reduced by 65% in the budget. And then the other item we had discussed previously, we're really getting kind of hammered, is interest income is going to go from 170 to a budget of about 15,000, a hit of about 91%. It's pretty painful, but interest rates are really almost non-existent at this point. So those are kind of the highlights or maybe lowlights of revenue for the year. If we go down below, I do want to draw your attention to salaries and wages, which we looked at previously. And so right now we're budgeting.
Marilyn, hold on a second. Let me just take this piecemeal. Let's talk about revenues first, and then we can go to expenses. So anybody have any questions on revenues? Terry, Barney?
It's just to be clear, we're budgeting the camp as such a significant, and programs in the anticipation that we're going to have a continuation of, I think we said phase 4. I forgot what we called it.
Right, which would be where we were at this year during those programs.
Okay, anything else? So the methodology you used to estimate your revenues was based on the projections that, based on your experience of operating the district under Tier 4 during 2020. You basically just use that as a basis to be able to make these projections in 2021. Is that accurate?
Exactly, yes. Yeah.
Okay. Anything else on revenues? Okay, let's go to expenses.
Okay, so when we go down to expenses, you know, we've already discussed programs and camps and special events. Again, salaries and wages, we did want to point out because that is showing a reduction of about 8.5% year over year. And we're going to look at that a little bit more closely. And we did discuss that in our opening comments that we have eliminated several positions, and some of them we would like to go back and fill, the more dire ones. And we'll go over that on another slide further on in just a moment. And we did want to point out too that our reduction in material supplies is quite substantial. Of course, with less programs and camps and special events happening, we would expect that to be the case. And then also we're just making, you know, just really a significant effort to minimize those kinds of expenses. And that's really all I wanted to highlight in this district-wide budget comparison for you, unless you have any more questions.
Let's start. President Ruttenberg, do you have any questions on expenses or revenues?
Well, I do. Well, we'll get into the nitty-gritty later, some other time. But debt retirement is shown as a decrease. Is that because the debts are amortized?
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
Okay.
Anything else, Barney?
No, sir.
Terry?
I'm good.
Okay, I have no questions. All right, next slide.
So next, we're going to look at our fund balance.
Wait, hold on a second. Can you go back one, please? I'm sorry.
Sure.
You didn't go over the bottom, the last line.
Oh, the transfers?
No, not the transfers, the net surplus or deficit.
Oh, I'm sorry. I guess that would be helpful.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay. So at the end of the 2020 budget, we had budgeted for a surplus of 1.6 million. And then we are budgeting about a $377,000 bottom line here with a decrease of about $1.2 million in our district-wide operations for the year. If you want to look at some of the biggest hits that we're taking, we have the $1 million in camps and $1 million in memberships. I mean, that's really our two biggest pain points, I guess I would say.
Anybody have any questions about that?
No.
Mary Lynn, are you going to show us in another slide what the impact of the fact is that we're going to have the surplus is going to decrease by 76%, how that's going to impact the district?
We're going to look at fund balances, and then next week when we get together, we're going to be looking at things more succinctly by fund. So sort of looking at charts like this, but one for just the general fund, one for the recreation fund.
And I think I'll just point out too, this is obviously a much more detailed version of the previous slide. So when you see the transfers in and out at the bottom, and you see the net surplus after transfers, that reflects the lower transfer to capital from the rec fund, and that's predominantly because of this net decrease here in overall that deficit. So overall, what gets affected is capital. The operationally, we're actually 12,000, not operationally, but the budget in totality is about $12,000 to the better because of the less of the transfer, which affects capital.
So what you're saying is that the fact that we're going to have our net surplus is going to be reduced by 76% versus budget, what we budgeted for 2020 and 2021, that it won't impact operations, it won't impact our fund balance policy, but it will impact our capital projects.
I think that's a fair statement. I think that's accurate. Mary Lynn, would you agree?
Yes, it is. And I'm sorry I didn't go over those bottom three lines. They're so low on my screen. I'm not sure if they're, I'm sorry I didn't hit on those, but right, yes, that was stated perfectly.
And those numbers, that net surplus reduction of 76.6%, those numbers are reflected in that funding model that we keep seeing, showing how much money we have available, and in our 5-year capital plan. Is that correct?
So it's definitely in the 5-year capital plan, when we go out and look at our funding amounts for the capital plan. And what was the first part of the question?
That the 5-year funding model that we have, that we've been looking at for years.
Yeah.
With regards, is this the fact that we're having a 76.6% reduced net surplus? Is that reflected in that funding model that we've been looking at?
Right, and yes, it is. Well, the reduced fund balance transfers, and actually, we're going to see that on the next page.
So you're saying that, so the fact is that there's that 76.6% reduction should not be a surprise, because we've seen that baked into other numbers that we've looked at.
Absolutely, yes. Okay. And again, when we do keep saying, worst case scenario, again, we hope that we will do better than these revenue numbers. We hope that our expenses will come in less. I mean, that is always the goal. And when we look at our 5-year funding model, when we show those reductions in the closer years, it's because of what's going on in the world. And, so we definitely have had to reduce what we anticipate transferring over to capital projects.
When you make this presentation to the board, I think that it'd be a good exercise to go over this and show them specifically what we're just talking about right now, and also provide assurance that that reduction of a lower amount of a surplus is reflected, that you've contemplated that and we're planning for it.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely true.
It's not a surprise.
No.
Okay. Anybody else any questions?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, let's go to the next slide.
Okay. So as we've just discussed, and we're just going to hop right over to it. So if we look at the capital project fund and where we're going to start, where we anticipate our opening fund balance to be, we can see that the plan for 2021 is to transfer 1.5 million from recreation over to capital projects and 300,000 from special recreation over to capital projects. And that was in both of, we made the special rec have its own 5-year funding model. That's what we showed in there for 2021. And this is what we have been showing really probably since last March or April when COVID hit, that we were going to have, $1 million. We reduced it down to $1 million for 2020. We reduced special rec down to $150,000 for 2020. And now we're gonna, we feel more comfortable upping it a little bit for 2021. And hopefully it will be more if, things get better and we do better than what we're projecting right now. Okay. What we're also showing, so we're showing debt service. It's pretty tight right now to come down to a zero balance at the end of the year, but that's fine. We don't need to have spare money sitting in debt service. Special rec, you can definitely see here the flat levy is very evident here, because usually our revenues in the fund are about $900,000. But yet right now, because we did get some more taxes in 2020 for special rec, this is looking a little bit better than we saw over the past couple of weeks. So it'll be right at about 15%. We project at the end of next year as far as the fund balance, which is in accord with board policy. And then over at general and rec, here's what we're anticipating at 1/1/21 with our revenues and expenses flowing through. Here's our transfers for debt that we discussed on a previous slide, coming out of the two funds and going into debt service. Again, we've got our capital transfers. And as you can see at the end of the day, that their fund balance are also very much in accordance with a board policy of 25% for those two funds.
Questions, comments, Terry?
No, I mean, it's just, it's depressing to see the year-to-year change, but no, I mean, this is what we've been planning.
President Ruttenberg?
I'm good.
The only thing I would like to see is that, and so my understanding is that the 62, 43, 15%, that's going to be our fund balances at the percentage of fund balance at the end of 2021. Is that correct?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, so if you can give us like a 5-year historical reference, and just to see how, based on over the last 5 years, how do these fund balances relate to what we've done in the past?
My understanding, and I will defer more to Brian, but my understanding is we have been purposely spending down our reserves so that we could fund more capital projects. So
and let me just make sure we're all reading this the same. So the general, that where it says estimated fund balance 12/31/2021 in the double line, that's where we anticipate being at the end of next year. And so those are 62% is the fund balance. I believe the 1 million, the 1.4 is what 25% would be.
Yes.
So we're well overfunded. And the reason that we are overfunded is based on the conversation that Cal, you asked the question and Mary Lynn answered it in the first slide is, based on the way we're ending this year, we could transfer more money to capital and reduce this fund balance, but we don't want to do that right now. We're suggesting not doing that just to be safe, because if something were to blow up in 2021, even worse, we don't want to be too hasty on transferring over that money. If we knew we were in phase 5, January, we would probably transfer that money over, or at least more of it, but we don't know what 2021 has in store for us. So the 3 million, the 4.6 million, and the 114,000 are all well above fund balance, and percentage-wise, well above where they typically are at the end of a year. But we can provide for you a 5-year history, and we will.
So what you're saying is basically we're going this year because of because we're being overly cautious that we're looking to carry a higher fund balance in those two funds than we normally would carry.
Correct. Yes, from a percentage standpoint.
From a percentage standpoint.
Right. And the other thing I want to point out too, so when you compute what your fund balance should be, it changes each year. It's based on what your budgeted expenditures are. And so our budgeted expenditures this year are less than what we would at a normal year, or a phase 5 year, so be it. So you're needing less reserves, so to speak, because your expenditures are less right now too. But in a normal year, these would be, increase a couple $1 million, which would drive up what our 25% number would be.
So Mary Lynn, by making this recommendation to carry a larger fund balance, you're saying it's the fiscally responsible thing to do, and it's prudent for us to do it this way rather than trying to transfer it into the capital plan.
Absolutely.
Capital fund.
And one of you, I don't recall who had asked Dan Berg when he gave the presentation, our CAFR presentation back in May or June, someone had asked him, what his thoughts were. And, they too are recommending that you really try to be pretty frugal right now with making transfers out, because no one knows what's going to happen. And it's better to be safe than sorry, I would say, just until things settle down.
Okay, so my suggestion is when you make this presentation to the board, you lead off by saying that this is be fiscally responsible. It's a prudent way that we're, the highlight is that we're looking to carry a larger fund balances than normal for 2021, just in case, because we don't know what's going to happen with COVID.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
That's how I would lead off with it.
Okay.
Okay, Terry, Barney, anything else?
No, as I keep saying, we have a bank account that's a household bank account. And all of this money that's on the screen is in our household bank account. We just happen to be sliding it into these categories because that's the way the world expects to see it. But our bank account, and this is where I keep going back to it, our bank account is solid as a rock at $16 million.
Sorry about that.
Got it. Okay. Anybody else have anything? Terry?
Nope.
Okay, let's go to the next slide.
Okay, now we were asked about some staffing numbers last time, and we also wanted to provide some more staffing numbers for you. So we are on this slide. It's important to note we are paying attention to what we call full-time equivalents, which are our part-time class 1 and full-time staff combined together. And they are benefit eligible positions. So in 2020, we had 112 full-time equivalents. In our budget for 2021, we are budgeting for 103 full-time equivalents. If you'll recall, we said salary and wages were going down by almost 9% year over year. So that is a difference of 9 staff people, or 8% of our total full-time equivalent headcount. Okay, we were also asked previously, how much does a 3% merit increase starting on April 1st for employees on their anniversaries cost us? And so if you add up their wages, the IMRF and Social Security, it comes to about $153,000 for calendar year 2021. We also wanted to share with you that in the budget, we also have anniversary awards for full-time equivalents, which celebrates people that are here for 5 years, 10 years, 15, 20, in 5-year increments. Those cost about $3,100 in the 2021 budget. And then finally, we have another 8 frozen positions for full-time equivalents. And we did discuss those earlier in the presentation as well. Those 8 full-time equivalent frozen positions have salaries of roughly $367,000, the IMRF of $12,000, Social Security of the $28,000, bringing that to a total of $408,000. So overall, these 3 items do add a roughly $560,000 to our budget, but we do feel that we have made a pretty significant decrease in our, overall full-time equivalent staff and percent of headcount.
Okay, let's stop here. Questions, comments? Terry?
Frozen positions means an empty position, yes?
Yes.
And if we did not, we'll get into details about it later. I understand.
Okay.
Terry, anything?
I know, like you said, we're going to get into this, but just to kind of make it public, we have to talk about this. We have to think about it in terms of budget terms, but we're not locked into actually spending this money. And if we decide this isn't the appropriate time to do that, this money just kind of goes back into our, as Barney keeps saying, into our little house, however he puts it, bank account.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, and I will say, as we had said on one of the very first slides, when we look at these positions, we are looking at probably most of them wouldn't start to be staffed until April 1st or so. I mean, we really need to see what the year is bringing and if it even makes sense to add these positions back in. But we would prefer to have the option to do that, if things are looking better, like, we would really need to have them filled.
Yeah, of course.
Anything else? Terry? Terry, Barney? Okay, I have nothing. Next slide.
Okay, so that is the end of this slideshow, unless there's any further questions.
Any other questions or comments? Terry?
Nope.
Barney?
No, sir.
Okay, are we done with this agenda item now?
Yes, we are.
All right, great. So in summary, just when you make this presentation to the board, just if you can hit the highlights we talked about. When is this going to be presented to the board?
Probably not until January when we do the board book.
Okay, so I'm sure we'll see it again before that.
Oh, you will, yes. At the in 2 more finance meetings, we'll go over the draft of the budget book. And
Okay. All right, next item on the agenda is audit schedule and engagement letter. Director Peters to present.
yes. Wow, of course. Let's see here. Sorry about that. You know what? I'm not seeing that it wants to pull off. You know what, Brian, are you able to pull it up?
I don't know, but you could probably just verbally
walk us-
share.
yeah, I think it's fine
the
too.
time frame for
Yeah.
the audit for
Okay,
2020.
I'm
Yeah.
sorry about that. But so basically, as you saw in your packet, we do have the engagement letter for the auditor, Stickage. This will be our second year with them. The engagement letter pretty much mirrors the one from the year before. They're very much written in accordance with all sorts of accounting principles of what they will and won't be doing in an audit. The most important thing is the price that's in there, which had been previously agreed to by the park board for 3 years with slight increases over each of the 3 years. They plan on starting their field work in January for a couple days. It's when they do their preliminary field work. And then the actual audit itself, just like last year, will take place in the middle of March. Oh, thank you, Brian, from March 15th to March 19th. And then we are planning to have them present the audit like they did last year, as well as their management letter comments down on May 20th at the bottom of the schedule. And then they would present the CAFR at the board meeting on June 22nd. And that's the schedule we've agreed upon. So we're getting ready to be audited. We feel like it just ended. But
Yeah.
Questions?
How do they conduct the audit if we're at continued lockdown in January?
so that is a good question. They have asked. So we usually reserve the conference room, and that's where they were here. And they were here in March of this last year, if you recall. Just finance was here and the auditors were here. We had them in Brian's conference room. They have asked for 2 rooms this year, So we would give them the boardroom and the conference room so that they can maintain social distancing. And then they said they would try to do possibly some things remotely as well.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, anybody else? Anything else?
This was the group that we hired for the first time last year.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay. Anything else on this item? All right, next item on the agenda is Rosewood Beach project update, Director Smith. And thank you, Directors Peters. Those are great presentations.
You're welcome.
Thanks.
All right, thank you, everybody. Can everybody see my screen?
Yes.
Right. So I'm here to give some brief updates on the 2 Rosewood Beach projects that we recently presented on at the board meeting. So the first one I'm going to talk about is the Smith Group contract for the Interpretive Cove, where we had went over the revetment options. If you recall, we talked about the trap bag option, which was kind of a midterm approach. It was also a long-term approach, which was a sheet pile wall. This was all to add protection to the building and protect the parking lot in the Interpretive Cove. So at a previous meeting, I had mentioned that we had finished most of that contract, but it's not complete. So just sharing the numbers here, you'll see for the Interpretive Cove construction documents, this was the original contract amount, which we had entered into with Smith Group at the beginning of the year. This is the portion that's been earned. This is where we've stopped. If we were to have them complete those construction documents, it would be finalizing permitting, completing the construction documents, all the technical specs. That would leave us with a document that we could bid out in the future. And that remaining cost is $3,700. The one below it is for the swimming cove. However, I believe it had been kind of decided that we weren't going to finalize drawings there because it didn't seem necessary for that area. But for the Interpretive Cove, this is the remaining amount. And I know this question is often asked, so I'll say that the shelf life on the construction documents would certainly be several years. And Smith Group was already tasked and told by the board to move forward with permitting. So they've started that process, and that also lasts for several years, the permitting. So if we were to finalize these construction documents for this amount, once again, it would allow us just to have them handy if we did feel the need to move forward at a later date. Now, I've also talked to Smith Group about remaining where we are, which is to not move forward. And at a later date, if we wanted to pick up and move forward, they said we could do that. They weren't able to give me an exact amount, but they said picking up the project at a later date would certainly have an additional cost, but they weren't able to tell me what that cost would be. So any questions about this?
Jerry?
Well, I just wanted to make sure that, it was almost kind of like a protest vote at the last one. I just want to make sure that we had a more comprehensive look at all of our needs along the lakefront. And so seeing that, that we seem to be plotting that out, I just wanted to make sure that there was just balance between our needs at Park Avenue and our needs here. So this seems very, it seems like a small amount in my mind to save us a little money in the future if we think we're going to do it in the future.
Barney?
My understanding is the staff is recommending we spend the $3,700, get the plans, permit, and then put it on the shelf. If we have to pull it out because conditions deteriorate, we can. And we'd save several months of time and some other costs that we don't know. Am I correct?
Yes, thank you.
Okay.
Okay, I have nothing. So the staff's recommendation is to spend the $3,700.
That's correct. It would also, like as Barney just stated there, it would put us in the position where if we did have to make a quick decision down the road a year or so, we would have those drawings and we'd just be ready to bid it out at that point.
And when do you anticipate putting this on a board agenda?
We could do that in the month of December. We wanted to get consensus from the finance committee before moving forward.
Is there a consensus that it's prudent to spend the $3,700 so we could be flexible in the future and have these plans readily available in case we need to act upon them in short notice? Terry?
Yeah. Are you asking if it's prudent? Is that what you're
No,
asking?
I'm saying, is it a consensus of the board that it's a prudent thing to do and that we should recommend, the finance committee should recommend to the full board that that's what we should do?
Yes, I am in agreement with that statement.
Barney?
Well, the contract is already in place.
So
Yes.
But the only thing is, I know at the last board, we said don't proceed. And I think because of that, either Brian should poll the other two board member, I'm sorry, I don't know Calso, but would poll the remaining board members and see if they would just want to proceed. And maybe we don't even have to go to the board. But I'm in favor of doing this, yes.
So just,
Okay,
Go
go ahead, I'm sorry, interrupt.
if you don't mind, I just wanted to clarify, what we asked for approval of was not necessarily the spending of the 3,700. It was what we were going to spend the 3,700 on. So there were two choices. There was the sandbag, trap bags, and which was a lesser expensive option. And then there was the steel revetment, which was a more expensive option. But the option to move forward with the drawings is the same. It's 3,700. It was, so I think that may be where things get confusing, is that the 3,700 we've really already committed to. It's just we needed to vote on which option the board wanted to go, what direction to get the plans for. Does that make sense to the board members on the phone?
Yeah, but you're saying at some future time, should the board decide to do it, we still have that decision to make, right?
Absolutely, but the
sorry.
decision that you're making now is which option to go with. You will always then have the option to go forward with that option, but we have to decide which option to make the drawings for.
We'll take it to the next board meeting with the recommendation from the finance committee. I'll wait for Cal to opine if that's the recommendation, that we should do 3,700, probably option 2.
Terry? Do you understand what's going on?
I do understand, but there's just that extra little coda at the end. It would be like, we could say, well, forget it, we're not going to do anything, right?
Mhm.
Yeah. So what's happening here is that we have a contract for plans. They can't complete the plans because we haven't picked the option for the plans to reflect. So what staff is recommending is that it's a good idea to have these plans available for worst case scenario, but in order to complete the plans, we need to choose an option.
No, I
Is
get
that
it.
accurate?
That's correct.
Yeah. I know it's going to be a no-go if we're saying something like, yeah, we're choosing this option and we're doing it. I mean, I just know there's other board members that don't feel comfortable with that, but so
Right.
I understand.
So you okay? Barney's suggesting that we recommend to the board that we choose option 2 to create plans, building plans, basically plans to implement option 2 if the board in the future decides it's necessary.
Yeah, I feel comfortable with that. Yes.
Okay.
And
I think
we'll
that's
have
the consensus of the finance committee then.
And is that a 3-0 consensus?
Yes.
Thank you. And so
Okay.
we'll have that as an item at the next board meeting.
Yes.
Great.
Okay.
Thank you.
Is there anything else on the Rosewood project?
Oh, yes, I have one more item.
Okay, great.
So this is just an update on the boardwalk, just adjacent to the Interpretive Cove, this boardwalk you see here along the river.
Is that picture from today, by the way?
Oh, yeah.
No, it is not.
Okay. Okay, go ahead. Sorry.
So as you will likely recall, we've had some challenges with this boardwalk where there has been, you can kind of see in this photo here, these are the stones that were put in about a year ago from the Army Corps. Just above it, you'll see concrete right here, and then there's the boardwalk. Under this concrete lift, I'll go to this photo right here. Here's that concrete we're looking at. There was gravel fill in here, and over time this has washed out. And with that, this concrete slab, this L-shaped concrete slab, has not had the support that it normally has, and therefore it's leaning. It is shifted and leaned toward the ravine. So Smith Group had come in and looked into this and developed multiple options for this. And the option that staff had been pursuing was option 3, they called it, which was a chemical grout. This was the lowest cost option, where you would have, it would be like essentially like mud jacking, if you're familiar with that, where a company would come in, they would drill into the concrete, they would pump a material in, which would fill the void, and it would also push up the slab and level it out. So what we would do, the park district would remove the existing boardwalk decking, but then the company would come in and do the work, and then the park district would reinstall the decking. So we've reached out to several companies for this. It's an interesting location, I think many of them find. And so what we found was, due to the size of the area and the uniqueness of the area, where there are some openings along the edges, none of the companies felt that the pumping of the material would jack up the slab, if you will. But what they did feel is that it would certainly be adequate and appropriate to fill the void and therefore stabilize it, not causing any more movement for the time being. So with this option, what we would do is we would have a company, if we went this route, would come in and they would pump in a high density polyurethane grout. It would fill this area and stabilize it. And then when the park district reinstalls the boardwalk, we would essentially shim it up and we would level it externally. And so we do have a quote here for $12,560 to do this work. I will say, though, you notice that I put on there it's a minimum of that, because we simply can't see underneath. So the void that exists has been estimated. But once the company starts to pump that material in, if it exceeds our initial estimate, there would be an additional cost for additional material. And yeah, so any questions about this potential route?
Can you just refresh our recollection on what the option 1, option 2, you don't have to tell us what they were, but
Yes.
what the costs for those options were?
Absolutely. So the other options are option 2 here, which is
So you have to go into details, so just tell us how much it
of
would
course,
cost.
estimated between 70 and 80,000.
Okay.
And in addition, this would require, from Smith Group, it would require construction documents, which would be approximately 10% of the cost, so about $8,000.
Okay. What's option 1?
And option 1, which was the more significant one, the main difference here was it would be putting in a sheet pile wall, steel wall along the ravine. This was 160 to 180,000, and plus the 10% for Smith Group's construction documents.
Can you go back to option 3 now?
Yes, and for option 3, we didn't feel there was any additional work Smith Group needed to do. They've certainly been in consultation with us about this, but there isn't anything else we need from them on moving forward with this option.
The one data point you forgot, you omitted here, was what the life expectancy of this repair option is. Is it?
Oh yeah, sorry, I ran out of room on the slide. It's between 5 to 15 years is what it's estimated at.
Okay. Okay. Questions, comments, Commissioner Grossberg?
No, I don't. It doesn't seem like we have much of a choice on this. I was down there the other day, and I was looking at just everything. Just seems to be slanting, and people are enjoying it even still. I mean, people love that beach, but boy, does it have problems.
President Runberg?
You said it was 5 to 15 years?
That was Smith Group's estimate. That is correct.
I suppose if we had unlimited funds, we do option 1, which is the sheet pile.
Definitely two. Definitely option two. One,
Yes.
if we had unlimited.
Staff feels that the two approaches to consider was option 3 or option 2. Now, if option 2 was considered, we would look to add dollars to the capital plan and do it in a future year. I think the positive for option 3 is that it can be done much sooner. Well, we're not concerned that it's going to simply collapse, but it does appear, as we're monitoring over the last several months, it appears to slowly continue to move slightly. And so for that reason, staff feels that stabilizing that area is certainly a positive thing to do.
Yeah, so not being an engineer, my concern is that it will continuously move, whether we jack up the boardwalk or not, because it's the interface between the parking lot and the ravine with those limestone blocks, which had to be retrofit. So I am obviously, I think we all are concerned that maybe we're going to see greater movement, but for the price of $12,000 or call it 15 to be safe, we're going to hopefully buy, a bunch of time to see what happens. And this is like putting the spackle up in the crack.
Yeah, I mean, I think if I recall, and Director Romes, you can correct me if I'm wrong, I think I voted against this. Didn't I vote against this? I think I did.
We didn't actually vote on it.
That was entered into the contract with Smith Group to assess it.
Got it. Okay, I knew I did something. So I agree with my colleagues here. I think that this is a Band-Aid that could last 15 years, and I think that obviously, as Commissioner Grossberg noted, it's a heavily used area. I wasn't excited about dropping $160,000 in it, but I think that if we can get a 15-year Band-Aid out of this for $15,000, as President Runberg noted, I think it's a responsible thing to do. So I would agree with that. So you're looking for a recommendation from the Finance Committee to take to the board?
So we don't need a board approval to spend $12,000, but I think it would be, my recommendation is to acknowledge the decision that we're making, that the board is supporting the option 3 versus option 1 or 2, which would need board approval. I could certainly go the route of getting consensus.
My suggestion is to put this as an agenda item, but note that it doesn't require a board action, but just to get a poll the board to make sure they're fine with it, and that the Finance Committee is recommending this option 3.
Yeah.
Neither of these items require board action, but we do need consensus based upon our last conversation at the board.
Yeah. So you can put it on the next agenda item, the next board agenda. I don't think it's going to take that long.
All right, thank you.
Okay,
Great.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Okay, what else? I'm getting tired. Other business, Director Peters to present.
Okay, all we have left under other business is to remind you that we have a Finance Committee meeting next Thursday, December 3rd. And then
Hold on a second. Hold on. Okay, so December 3rd?
yes.
Fourth.
4th, no, 3rd. 3rd is a Thursday.
Yeah,
At 4 o'clock?
yes, yes.
Okay, what's the next one after that?
And then it's 2 weeks later on Thursday, December 17th at 4 p.m.
Got it. Is that okay with your schedule, Terry?
Yeah, if it's at 4.
Okay, Bernie, you okay with that?
No, we're good. Well, I don't know if
Okay,
we're good,
so
but that's
so
fine.
thanks, sir. I didn't have the 17th down, so I appreciate you letting us know about that.
Sure.
Yeah, if you did have it on the 10th, I think that's what it originally was. And there's like 6 meetings in a 2-week span. So we moved it from the 10th to the 17th to allow us a little bit more time to adjust to feedback if there is any from this committee. So it would be the 3rd and the 17th versus the 3rd and the 10th.
I'm fine with that.
Good.
Okay, so are we meeting again tomorrow? Do we have some other meeting tomorrow? I feel like we meet every day now.
We have a day off tomorrow.
Okay.
Oh, I know.
Okay,
Well, I have everybody in attendance. Was there a Sunset, and this isn't on the agenda, was there a Sunset Woods conversation?
Yes.
Okay.
We had a liaison meeting on Sunday. Yes.
Yeah,
okay,
we went Sunday.
I think
Okay.
So
that's great. It shows the dedication.
It was
Is
a
there,
wonderful.
is there any other business from staff members, board members, anything else? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, there's a motion by President Ruttenberg, a second by Commissioner Grossberg. All in favor, say aye.
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 The ayes have it.